gonna get started. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. My name is Bex. I am the events coordinator here at Bookstore Magic, and we're so excited to have Arianna Rebolini and Emily Gould here with us to celebrate better. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes to go over. After, at the end of the discussion, we'll be doing a Q&A, so think of your questions, hold them tight. We will try to get them answered. After that, Arianna will be signing and personalizing where you checked in. We'll let you know when and where to line up for that. If you're joining us virtually on the live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of Better using the link in the description. If you're here, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy here. I don't want to put them back on the shelves. I want them in your homes, and then we can order more, and everyone would be so happy because you got them in Independent Bookstore, and it's Independent Bookstore Day tomorrow. So celebrate that today. Better, the reason we're all here is a gutsy, riveting memoir that intimately explores suicide, its legacy in families, and the often cyclical, crooked path of recovery. In this intellectual and emotional odyssey, Arianna touches on suicide's public fallout and intensely private origins as she searches for the answer to the question, how do we get better for good? Star of tonight's show, Arianna Rebolini, is a writer from New York. She is the co-author with Katie Heaney of the novel Public Relations. She lives in Queens with her husband, son, and 2 cats. Conversation partner extraordinaire Emily Gould is a features writer at New York Magazine. Her novels include Perfect Tunes and Friendship, which we also have here tonight for you to purchase at the front. So you should do that. Without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to Arianna and Emily.
Thank you. Hey. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And I want to thank Emily for joining. I know as someone who has done these from that side, it's a lot of work and it's not easy. So thank you. I really appreciate taking the time and energy.
No problem.
And thank you to Bookstore Magic for hosting me. I am nervous. It's every time I did from your side, people were like, you have a harder job right now. And I'm like, no, I'm really scared on this side. So I don't know. And I also just want to say hi to Theo, my son, who was allowed to watch until this moment. I'm on YouTube right now, and I think that he thinks I'm a streamer. So hi, Theo. Okay, I feel very if you're watching, go to bed,
Like and subscribe.
Exactly. Okay, hang on. Before I can feel my phone about to fall out, I'm going to put that here. Okay, so I am going to do a quick reading. I tried to pick something that I would be least likely to cry because I don't want to just do that to all of you. So here we go. You don't really need to know anything before this. Okay. Tucked away on Reddit is a forum called Suicide Watch, and it is the only community I've found that is guided by a true evidence-based understanding of what support for a suicidal person should and shouldn't look like. A brief blurb on its homepage describes its purpose as peer support for anyone struggling with suicidal thoughts. Primarily, it is a place where some users come to announce they are about to kill themselves, and others come to help them stay. It is a stark, often uncomfortable feed to scroll through, strictly moderated to maintain a tone of pragmatism that to those who have been conditioned to equate mental health with unnuanced hope might appear cold and withholding. The community's moderators provide extensive resources to explain without judgment which types of responses aren't allowed and why. Ultimately, these are guides to performing the delicate maneuver of empathizing with a person in distress without unintentionally inciting their suicide. The guide cautions against messages ranging from the more obviously misguided, your life can't possibly be that bad, suicide is selfish, you don't really want to die, to those that more likely come with the best intentions. Most infamously, it gets better. The popularity of the community is particularly compelling in that it suggests both what the suicidal person wants and also, more valuably, what they don't want. Though it falls under the umbrella of social media, Reddit is more a hub of decentralized forums than it is a single feed, and it's unique in that the user's right to privacy is a foundational principle, meaning that a vast majority of its user base is anonymous. This anonymity, along with the subreddit's well-established ethos, ensures that a suicidal person can express themselves on Suicide Watch without fear of judgment, and also without risk. Responders can try to talk them out of killing themselves, but no one has the means to actually intervene. There is safety, or at least some sense of it, in knowing that one can express an intent to die and then decide against it without repercussion, without being forced into a treatment plan they might not be ready for, and without permanently altering their relationships with those who saw the announcement. It is perhaps the only way for a suicidal person to be vulnerable without losing autonomy. Studying early websites in Japan created specifically for those planning to commit suicide, Ozawa de Silva wonders why people not only wanted to share their pain with strangers, but also to literally die with them. Often the site's visitors made plans to meet in hard-to-find locations just to have company when they go. Sometimes it would pan out, sometimes it wouldn't, but the risk of being stopped was always low. The phenomenon emphasizes two directly opposed but deep-seated desires, encapsulated in a comment left by one user called Boa. I want to be alone, but I wish someone were there by me. I think that's a good place to end.
Didn't pick any of the first person parts, I see.
I know, it's kind of a cop-out. I ended actually, like, even just a little early because I'm like, I feel like I had been, like, was that 10 minutes? Was that like a half hour of me reading?
No, it was very interesting, and I totally respect your choices. So let's talk about some of the other parts of the book.
Yeah, no, please.
Well, at first, I just wanted to ask you, one of the things you talk about pretty early on in the book is how you had been feeling pretty good for a while, but then one of your signs that you really weren't doing well was that when your book with Katie Haney came out and you were doing the book events for that, it was like this big milestone in your life. You'd had a book published, something you'd had it on your like list of life things to, put a check mark next to, as we all do. And then when it was happening, you just couldn't feel any of the joy. Is this going differently?
I mean, a fair question. I'm like, no. No, it is. But what's funny is that, like, I was nervous because I was writing this and I had set up this idea that I was like, well, obviously that didn't feel big because I was about to go to the psych ward. Like, I was obviously in a really big depression. And so that's why it didn't feel huge and exciting and right. And then when I knew like the books were arriving, I was like, this has to feel good. Like, what if it doesn't feel totally amazing and fantastic? Oh, it's so exciting. But it's different. It feels like it's supposed to. It feels a lot better. Well, and it's also just I've been working on it for so long, and I've been writing this since 2017, and so I have had a lot of dreaming about this specific book coming out, which wasn't necessarily the case with the novel. And so I think there are a few things that made that a little less exciting, but this feels much bigger and also makes me feel like, oh, okay, I am in a better place. Because it is both bigger, but also not like this has to mean everything,
So healthy. Oh my God.
Thank you. I mean, like I said too, someone in an interview like asked me again if it like is a flop, because then maybe I'll have a different idea, maybe not be so healthy.
No, I think it sounds like you really have things in perspective. I'm just like asking nosy questions about your life at this point, but all of this is in the book. So
yeah,
it's
it's fair. I kind of set you up. I didn't give you an easy job by not getting into the first person. I'm sorry about that.
It's cool. Just so you know, the book begins by Ari talking about how she racked up $10,000 worth of debt to her therapist. As someone who has also been in debt to my therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, at this moment, probably has not paid the March invoice. How about anyway? It's for another day. Like, I forget how that story one of the things that's interesting about your book is that you sort of like will launch into a personal story, get a lot of momentum going, get the reader really engaged in finding out like how this particular personal story ends, and then you'll be like, in Sylvia Plath's diary, and like, and we, of course we're gonna like keep reading. But sometimes it's hard to remember like where a story ends. So like, remind me how the story of you being in debt to your therapist ended.
Yeah.
And also, would you, because you say at one point that, I'm just doing the back of the envelope math here, but like the sessions were $600 a pop.
Yeah.
And you went, and after you confessed to her that you couldn't pay her the money that you owed her, instead of being like, well, I'm done with you, you horrible brat. She was like, I think we should really double down on your money issues.
Yeah.
And you started seeing her like
multiple times
a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting yourself even further into the hole.
You are aligned with my husband on the tone of this project.
So like so how did that resolve itself?
Well, so there's the thing that is in the book, which is that we kept working together. We figured out a payment plan. The thing is, like, I had been seeing this therapist for as long. I wrote this whole book with her, working with her, and she's in it, and she helped me so much. But it's also a human being, like she's a person. And so I was like, why would you trust me? Like, but she was like, let's try this. Let's see if this is, because we worked with money. I have a lot of debt. I've, crashed my credit multiple times. And so she was like, this could be an interesting experiment. And so we kept working together, but ultimately, like, she's not my therapist anymore. And it was because of the money. The funny thing about money with therapists is that they're like, oh, it's a valuable tool for us to talk. If you like are resentful that like I charge this money, that's an interesting thing for us to talk about. And it's like, well, I guess, but like also you charge $600 for 45 minutes, and that's a lot of money. Like, and so it all just became too much. And so I was like, I sent her a copy of the book, and I was like, thank you for everything. Like, but I just, I get into it a little bit too. Like I have ethical issues with that amount of charging. And then also the fact that she was like, let's rack up some more here, which I don't think she was doing. Like we did, she was like a great source of help for me. And while I was going through this breakdown that was like spurred by this massive amount of debt that I had been spending the reimbursement checks for my insurance company and was telling her they haven't arrived yet because I had no money. And so I was just like, I'll get a job and then I'll pay it back and she'll never know. And I didn't get a job because no one in writing has jobs right now. And eventually I had to tell her like those checks arrived and they're gone. So it's something I feel really complicated about still, especially because like I literally just started seeing a new therapist like 2 days ago. She's great. So and she doesn't charge $600. So.
2 days ago?
Literally 2 days ago. It's fresh.
I'm like, is she here?
She's not here. I was like, it's so funny because we were talking, doing the get to know you like questions, and I'm like, I just wrote, like, can I just give you the book? Like, it's all in there. Like, everything's in there. Just read this. But yeah, she's good.
Wait, so she didn't want to read it?
I mean, she might. She knows about it. I didn't ask her. I didn't put her on the spot. I told her about it though.
Oh, I started with a new therapist a couple of years ago, and unlike any therapist who I've ever had in the past, I don't think she's read any of my books, but she like makes a point of like reading all of my, like New York Magazine things.
Oh, really?
Like, as they're published, and it's like she's trying to be like an alternate universe version of my parents.
She's like, I'm gonna read all the easier stuff to read. That's
she's just like reading my stuff and giving me like unconditional positive
Oh, that's
reinforcement
nice.
about it. Whereas like when my parents read something that I've written, they're like, I noticed that you didn't mention blah blah blah, and I'm like,
why are you here? Yeah. No, it's not helpful.
But thanks for letting me know you got it. Anyway, this is not about me. But there were so many parts of your book that I obviously really related to. We've both been to the psych ward. we've both worried about passing on our mental health issues to our children, and even had to talk to our children about really, really tough things, and figure out an age appropriate way to talk about that with them. I'm skipping way ahead in the book now, but you've recently published an excerpt of the book on the Cut, which is where I work, and I thought it was such a great excerpt, and it just for anyone who read it, like really got at a lot of what is so special about this book, because you're so frank about how impossible talking about these things can really feel sometimes, because it, even in, you know, a world where very little feels truly unspeakable, like admitting that you want to die or have wanted to die still feels like a huge taboo.
Yeah.
And certainly something that's very scary for a kid to hear, to know about. What do you, like, when you're talking to your son about death, what are some of the things that you sort of like focus on to get through the conversation and on to the other side of bedtime?
Yeah. Theo, he's going to be 6 in July. And he has been obsessed with death for years. I think as soon as he like figured out it was a thing. And most of the time we get through it. I kind of handle it the same way that I handle myself in my own like death anxieties when I'm scared of what death is, which is I say like, no one knows for sure, but what I believe is when you die, you'll see me, I'll see you, and we'll be together again. And it's like basically heaven. I am not, I was raised Catholic, but I'm not Christian anymore, but I agree. I believe in that idea. It's a nice idea, And so that is ultimately where we get to a place where he can just be reassured, like, I won't be gone forever. It'll be very sad when I die. I will probably die before you, but it'll be a long time from now. It's a lot of the like, this is real. It's going to happen. It's really sad. It's sad for everybody. Everybody thinks it's sad, but we try not to think about it. But he has a really hard time not thinking about it. And so it's just a matter of like trying to make it less scary, but it's like, that's it for anyone, like that's what we're all trying to do basically. But as far as this book specifically, it was a kind of a strange thing. A lot of this book, parts of it is realizing that all these ideas and fears that I had about having a child and also being depressed and also being afraid that he would be depressed, I was like, well, at least I have time, like he's so young, he'll be like in high school by the time it's like an issue. And realizing like how young that sadness can show itself, that anxiety, and so it's come up a lot earlier. And now these books arrived right when he started reading, and so he was so excited to open the book, and I was like, oh, you're going to see that this book is called A Memoir About Wanting to Die, and he doesn't know what a memoir is. So I was just like, this is a book. It's like I try to make sense of not lying, but telling only as much as I need to. So I was like, this is a book about sometimes people don't want to be alive anymore. And he was really surprised to hear that, which was kind of surprising to me, because I was like, oh, as someone who thinks about this a lot, you've never considered that you might not want to be alive, which is like such a strange thing to think about a child. But he was very visibly surprised. And I said, but like, it's okay. It's about helping people not feel like that anymore. And I don't feel like that. And, it's just, I knew that my depression and my history with suicide was going to be part of our life. And then also this book was going to be part of our life. But I don't think I knew how immediately. Like, I thought I had it longer to have it just with me,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're handling it as well as any of us can.
I hope so.
There is just like a phase that kids go through. I mean, it sounds like Theo's phase has lasted for pretty consistently for several years, but I do think a lot of it is just stall. It's just like they see that it gets a big reaction from you, and then it becomes like the world's ultimate stalling tactic.
Oh yeah.
Like both of my kids have gone through phases of bringing up the death of my husband's mother, which happened when he was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Circa like 9:25 in the evening, and it's like, I see what you're doing.
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
We're not gonna mourn the grandmother that you never had at 9:25.
No, it's true. It's
Yeah.
they suck you in. I'm gonna like call out my mom real quick. I'm sorry, but I for some reason explained to my son, I was like, you know, he calls her Booma. Like Booma's friend died and was very sad, and because he had asked a question about it, and then I found out that like behind my back, he like went up to her and was like, "Did you have a friend who died?" like he just like they want it, and she was like, "How did he know?" And I was like, "Well, because I told him." And he's like, they want something, and I was like, "Yeah, he played you. He knew exactly. It is." And I try to remind myself too, because I'm like, "Oh God, he's depressed." And it's like, no, he's also just a kid, and kids are like just trying to get attention and figure things out, and they like getting people's reactions. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, he goes. You don't have a mic, Mom. You can't hear. That's my mom.
I look forward to getting the fuller scoop on that. Sorry, I need to pull up my question.
No, that's fine.
Where did they go? Oh yeah. There was one episode of Suicidality where you did decide to go the inpatient psych route, and then there was another one where you decided not to. What were some of the factors in your choices both times?
I think that
Justify your major life decisions.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that there were a lot of factors at this point. You know, it was when I had already had Theo, and my husband, he is chronically ill, and so he's dealing with his own illnesses, and it's something, you know, you like to think like, well, you can't be blamed for, like, if you need help, you need help. Like it's an illness. If you need to go to the hospital, you go. But I still have part of me that's like, but I don't know if I need to go. And knowing what my being inpatient would do to both of their lives, I think I still ultimately like trust my ability to know my safety level and my, you know, risk level. And I think that that's obviously like an imperfect system because people get that wrong all the time. But I just sensed that I was like, I can't do this until I'm absolutely certain that like it is necessary, because I can't square the possible benefits and like the health, the healing of it with what it's going to do to my world. Like I have people who rely on me, and it's just a fact, you know? And then also the fact that like I didn't name them in the book because I was like, I don't want to get like sued, but like I went to Maimonides and they were fine for me, but it's like kind of a shitty place. And like this time around, it could be terrible. If I go to a different place, it could be awful. Like you just never know what you're going to get. And there's a lot of unknowns there. So I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot of, there's definitely the aspect of thinking you know how to keep yourself better than anyone else does. So there is that like hubris. And then also like the logistics of it. It's just like, that's a headache, you know, and also kind of scary. And you just want to think you don't need it, you know?
And you had a plan with your therapist.
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
stuck with it.
Yeah.
It
It wasn't like I had no care. When I went to the hospital, like I had nothing. Like I didn't have a therapist. I was going to like a shitty psychiatrist, like, you know, clinic where you saw like a different person every week for like 15 minutes. You can go and be like, hey, I think I need Adderall. And they'd be like, okay, like it just whatever. And so it was very different times of my life. And so I think that I felt confident that I didn't need that to get through it. And then I didn't, so it was okay.
You wrote very evocatively about the psych ward. Just the sort of the crunch of the mattress, like little details like that. It was very, very evocative.
Thank you.
By the way, if you have to if you find yourself in a situation in your life where you have to check yourself into the psych ward, I do actually really recommend NYU Langone. I would give it like 4 out of 5
I've
stars.
heard, yeah, I've heard that that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I have not recommended Maimonides. I was like, it was okay, but it was, I wouldn't say it was therapeutic.
yeah. You know, I'm sure if during the Q&A, if anyone else has any other suggestions, we can crowdsource this.
Yeah.
You also talk about the upsides and the downsides of meds and how scientists don't really know why antidepressants work, only that they do. And you bring up a bucket of water.
Yeah.
Can you explain the bucket of water?
Yeah. This is, I wish, okay, actually, I think I do remember. It was a Reddit user, Gullible Thug is his name. That's his username on Reddit. And he did this like kind of analogy that I was like, this actually makes sense to me. And basically, we know, we being, you know, doctors and scientists, that antidepressants and psychotropic medicine works, but we don't really know why. And a lot of the reasoning is that it just kind of dulls everything. So it's just like flooding whatever, you know, if you need serotonin or whatever, it makes it more accessible. And it's keeping you from feeling that like despair, but it's not really like fixing the problem. And so the analogy that the guy said, I hope I get this right. He was like, if you have a bucket of water and there's a hole in the bucket and the water's coming out, you just keep filling it up with water, and so you never stop filling it up. The bucket's always going to be full, but you haven't fixed the bucket. Like, it still has a hole. And so they kind of was like, that's how it works. Like, it's just like, okay, here's more serotonin. Don't worry. But we don't really know what the issue is. It's just kind of dealing with the immediate problem of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Gullible Thug is not here. I would say.
I trust Gullible Thug more than any doctor I've ever had. What? Yeah. So the question is like, well, you raised many questions in the book. Among them, what, if anything, can fix the hole? Is the hole something that is other than the self, or or are the whole and the self inextricable parts of each other? Like, yeah, I don't know. Just talk about that a little bit more, because it's such a big part of the book, figuring out.
Yeah. It's something that like I went through such a long period of not taking my meds, because I was like, I shouldn't need meds to live. Like, as if like these are the only medications that, like, a depressed person is the only person who has to take medication to live. Like, so many do. But for me, I was like, no, that's not real. It's going to change who I am. You know, like, I'm going to lose like my spark. You know, there's like so many memes about it. And then the spark is just like a disastrous room, you know? But I think that it took me a really long time I actually probably didn't stick with meds consistently, taking them the way I was supposed to, until I went to the hospital. And even still, I am just kind of like, I don't know. There's so many factors to my feelings of despair when I've gone through them that I have a hard time being like, oh, the meds fix that. Because when I went to the hospital, something that I think stuck with me was the doctor was like, sometimes all you need is to put yourself in an environment where you cannot kill yourself, and your brain stops, like, lets go of that, because they know it's not a possibility. And I was like, well, that's interesting, and that makes sense to me. So was it that, or was it the meds you started giving me in the hospital, or was it the fact that like I didn't have my phone for 5 days? You know, like, there are so many things, and it's hard for me to pinpoint one, or it's hard for me to figure out how much credit goes to the medication. And I'm too afraid to stop. Like, I'm not going to test it, because whatever it is working, you know, and I'm lucky enough to have found something without tons of terrible side effects. But I think that I don't blame anyone who is really resistant to it, because a lot of them suck, you know. Something I talk about in the book is that once I started taking these new medications that I'm still on, I get brain fog, and they call it poor word recall. And so now I'm like really scared to do these events, because I'm like, I can't think of words sometimes. Like, writing, you have time with it, but there are real effects, you know? And I don't blame people for being wary of trying it out, especially when the theories behind them are still pretty shaky.
Talking about the second time that you were very low and you decided not to go the inpatient route and instead to go on medical leave from your job that you had then. And then when you came back to the job, sorry, it's actually sorry, this is so fucked up, but it's such a funny story to me, especially on the eve of Independent Bookstore Day.
The timing is like actually perfect.
Can you just tell the story?
Yeah,
of how you quit BuzzFeed the second time that you worked at BuzzFeed.
Yeah, the second time I went back.
I'm so sorry, but I had dinner with another friend who works in media before I came here, and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing later?" And I described you, and I described the book, and my friend was like, "She worked at BuzzFeed twice. No wonder she wanted to kill herself."
Fair. Fair. But so yeah, there was a lot of, I texted Rachel, my brilliant editor, and I was like, I just the book is done, but I realized I never explained why I went back, because people are going to be like, why did she go back? And she was like, it's fine. People change their minds. But ultimately I left because how to explain? I was coming up again and again against something that anyone who works in media comes up against, is with this idea that they sell you, which is don't worry, we have to make money, but the editorial is separate. We will not make decisions based on the investors and the ads, and it's fine. And this was 2021, I guess, when I finally, and we had gone through the phase of being we all care about you, the pandemic, we'd all been working from home, everyone gets a mental health day a month, please take it. But then, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm having a hard time. And they're like, well, we're actually really behind. Can you pick up a story? It's just the hypocrisy got to me. And so basically what happened was, I, just being kind of a brat, was oh, they were getting ready for Prime Day, which I'm sure you all know what Prime Day is, which is when, all the massive sales, and anyone who works in commerce journalism knows that it's everything. It takes over everything. The most important thing is Prime Day content and telling you all about the deals and all that stuff. And I was like, well, what if we do a story about why you shouldn't shop at Amazon, buy your book somewhere else. And so I was like, I just want to do a list of the best, because I had been pushing for a long time to be we could make a splash, being the first book media company to be we do not link to Amazon. And that was a non-starter. And so, not gonna happen. And so then I was like, well, why don't we just do this post? We can say really briefly, other places to get cheap books, and here's why you might want to go somewhere else and not Amazon for your books. And relatedly, they just did their first sale that overlaps with Independent Bookstore Day. So evil. So I got a no. I knew I was going to get a no, but I was like, I want to hear it. You have to tell me. And I had a very tense conversation about it with my manager and wrote about it on my blog and was like, yeah, fucking fire me. I dare you. You just get to a point where you're how far, what I was trying to push to be how scared are you? How scared are you of, how weak are you? How much are you in line with this thing that you're no, I swear, we get it. They're bad, but it's what we have to do. It's capitalism. And I just kept pushing, and I didn't quit right away. I was I had a conversation with my manager at the time, and I was like, I'm sorry about the blog post. And she was like, I wish you told me you were going to do it. I was like, oh, I don't know, but I'm sorry. I was like, I'm going on a leave. I hope I have a job when I come back. And she was like, yeah, we'll talk. And then I just never came back. And I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing it. And then I wrote another blog post, and I think, was you, Shane? Did you send me a screenshot of someone sent me a screenshot. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but someone was like, my teacher was like, it's burning down, because I wrote about how I'm not gonna, which it felt very big and bold at the time, but it's literally, who cares if you're quitting BuzzFeed? It's not a big deal. But I was like, no, I can't do this. I'm not gonna do this anymore. I can't, it's such a minor stance to be I'm not gonna make money for I'm not going to make Bezos money. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. But it was. And I was like, this is one little thing I can do. So I just never went back. And I still don't have a job. I had other jobs. It's okay.
But you don't need one. You're a famous author.
Exactly.
And you live in Ridgewood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's fine.
Yeah. No, you're all set. Okay, I want to ask you many more prying questions about your life and how much various things cost. And we didn't even get to talk about all of the books that you talk about in the book. And you know what? That'll be my last question, and then I'm gonna toss it to the audience. So I'm just giving you a warning now that it's time for you to start thinking of your questions. And I'm sure you can think of some good ones. I know you have it in you. I can see it in your eyes. Okay, kind of a bad question, but what of all the books that you read, you set yourself this project when you first started writing this book of reading all these books by authors who had we don't say committed suicide. That's in the book.
Oh no, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with committed suicide.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pro that.
Yeah, I mean, I like on Slack. Always say unalived.
Yes. Yeah.
In case anyone's like monitoring.
Yeah.
Anyway, you read all these books by authors who had done the deed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, it's hard to pick a favorite, but like, you know, should you like maybe like a top three?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I will respond with a question. So it started as reading books by writers who killed themselves, but then it expanded to books by people who have wanted to, like, who write about suicide. Can I include those too? Is that allowed? Okay. Okay.
Sure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
No.
No, that's not the question. Okay. So I will say that it's God, my bookshelf for a while was like a dark place, but Suicide, just called Suicide, by Edward LaVey was a really good one, really short one. And the dark story about that is that he is a French writer who wrote this book, and it's the perspective. It's sort of like it's told in second person, and it's the friend speaking to a man who killed himself. And so he's saying, "You did this. You try not to make sense of his suicide." And Edward LaVey wrote the book, handed it to his editor, and then killed himself 7 days later. And so everyone's like, that was his suicide note. Like, that's him talking to himself. And it's really good. It's really short. Obviously, it's dark. But I would say that was a favorite just because it's such an interesting take on that. It's like very personal, but I love second person. Hannah Bear's.
You're the only person who I've ever heard say that.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, well, no, writing teachers are always like, avoid second person.
I know. I mean, it can be gimmicky, but I think something I always remember as a writing teacher was like, if you're going to use second person, know exactly who you is, like who is the you. And in that book, it's so clear. And when it's clear, I love it.
You must love the show You.
I do, actually. I do. We can talk about what's the name, Penn Badgley? And
what did you think of the way it ended?
I'm not up to date, so don't. Yeah, okay. Then, so Hannah Bear must think that I am like insane because I happened upon her book, Trans Girl Suicide Museum, in Tobos, my like local used bookstore. And I was like, for like years, anytime I saw a book with suicide, I'm like, mine, like perfect. And it blew my mind. It's very short. She imagines suicide as a process, as a museum, as a place that you live in and you stay in. And she calls it doing suicide, which is thinking about it and trying to survive it. And it's just just really amazing. And so since it is about trans girls and I am cis, I reached out to her and I was just like, hey, like, I want to like just let you know I'm doing this, and like, can I send you, like, I want to make sure I'm like not misreading this, like I don't want to be like, this is what be like, this is what I, but it's just, I had never read anything like that, imagining suicidality as like with physical space. So that one I recommend like broadly. And then I I don't know. Oh God. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? Osamu Dazai. I don't know how to say his, I should know because I did the audiobook and we had to practice all this. But he's like kind of having a moment. I mean, he's also dead because he killed himself, but he is being reprinted a lot and his work is really good. No Longer Human is the one that I wrote about. And that's also a really good one because it gets into like the kind of capitalism of it all. Like it's very political and he's only depressed when he's really suicidal when he can't afford to live. And then, oh, I'm going to cheat because Miriam Tave's All My Puny Sorrows is actually my favorite, like of all time. And she has a memoir coming out like very soon, actually. So love her. She doesn't need my help, but
When?
I don't know. I just got it in the mail, and I was so shameless because I got the pitch, and I was like, "Oh, I would love this. Can I give you my book to send to Miriam Davis?" And we'll see if she does. I don't know, but yeah, those very good books.
What a good list. It's almost like you have experience with writing lists of books.
I know, right?
It's so crazy. All right. I'm going to take questions from the audience, and then for the purpose of the YouTube live stream, I'm going to repeat your question. So you will have to deal with having to hear the question twice. Yes, you in the front row with the awesome glasses.
Thank you. Can you tell us about the making of this zine?
The question is, can you tell us about the making of this zine?
Did you get a zine? You have to get a zine. Yeah.
Now I have one.
Yeah, you have one.
Cool.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. As someone who was in book media, swag was like top of mind to me. Like I was like, what am I going to make? What am I going to send people? And also knowing that like 99% of the time you're like, I don't have anything to do. Like I'm not going to use this like weird mug with like the book title. Like you just like, it's very rare that it's something that's worth having unless it's like Sally Rooney and you actually just stan. So I was like, I'm just gonna make a little zine. I don't remember like how it started because I have been saving like artifacts about the book for as long as I've been writing it and like saving memes and just like I had this whole stash and I was like, I'm just gonna make a zine out of it. And then I was like, well, I want to include stuff from other people too. So Hannah Bear is in there. Another reason why she's like, leave me alone. Like you wrote a book, like I get it. I reached out to friends whose work inspires me and yeah, I don't know. It was just a really fun project and I'm giving it out. I'm leaving it like all over the place at like coffee shops and stuff and then also at events. So you guys all have one now. And I just wanted to make something fun and physical. I love zines. So yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Madame in the back row with the reddish earrings.
Hi, Lindsay. Good. How are you?
Generally through the highs and especially in the lows, how do you balance like being open with the people in your life about how dark things are versus keeping it to yourself?
Okay, just to paraphrase, the question is, you write in the book about how you are open with your family, but how do you deal with being open about both your highs and your lows?
I mean, really imperfectly. Like I don't do it well. The funny thing about this book is like, obviously it's a memoir, but it's also me writing a version of me that I'm like still trying to be, you know, like I write a lot about like therapy sessions and the things I'm learning. And I'm like, and now I know this is the way to do it, like, you know, in a better sounding way. And I don't do it that way still. Like I'm trying to, but like, I am like, my family's like literally right here. Ask them, I guess. I try to give them a heads up before I'm going to share something on Instagram. You know, like I still am much more open on like Instagram stories. It's easier. And so I guess I don't really have I wish I had a more satisfying answer. I am trying to be open about like, I'm struggling while also like letting myself be like, hey, I don't want to like make this a whole thing, but I am having a hard time. Like kind of just being like, here's what's going on. I don't really want to talk about it, but that's the reality, you know? I guess. Does that answer?
A lot about Ari's life through social media.
They learn a lot through social media, is what my sister said.
I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm having a hard time. Would really not work with my family. They would all be immediately calling me until I picked up the phone.
It's not, well, see, that's something I talk about. It's like, I have a hard time with it because it's not really fair to be like, just so you know, like, I am suicidal, but I don't want to talk about it. You know, like, you give up part of like your right to that privacy when you want to have those relationships. And it's something I really, really struggle with.
Yes. Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Rachel.
Part of the interesting, complicated thing about writing about your own life is it involves other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, like, what were some of the hardest or the most interesting conversations you had with other people about what you were planning to put into the book? And is there anything you ultimately like left out as a result of those negotiations?
I have to repeat it.
Right. Yep.
The interesting thing about writing about your own life is that your own life involves other people. What were some of the conversations that you had to have when writing this book with other people, and were there things that you ultimately ended up deciding not to include? And if so, will you tell us what they were and describe them in detail?
Really, I am very lucky that my family was like, Godspeed, like, go for it. They were fine with it. The hardest thing person to write about is Jordan, who is not here tonight. He's not for any reason other. He just works on Long Island and couldn't get here in time. But he is the most vulnerable in this book because as much as it is about my time in the hospital, it's about his time and so I checked in with him constantly to be like, are you sure you're okay with this? Because it's like it's very intense. And Jordan is like remarkably offline, very low ego. And he's like, what do I care? And I'm just like, I got to a point where I was like, he's like, do you want me to say no? Like, cause I was like, people are going to really, he didn't care because it's just not how he lives his life. Like his life is in a book somewhere, but it's like, he doesn't know the people who are reading it. And it's just a very different, he was fine with it. With Theo and Brendan, it was a lot trickier. And there was a lot of navigating conversations with Theo. I think in my first drafts, maybe Rachel would agree or disagree with this, but I feel like there were a few things where I was like, I had to be like, oh wait, like where is my family in this? Like Brendan's not, like, you can't just talk about being a mother, but like Theo's not in the book and Brendan's not in the book. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to square because it's like, I don't know, my family just have to deal with me because they're my family, but like Brendan chose me and like I made Theo. So there's like more, I felt more of an obligation to like be really, really careful with them. And I'm ultimately happy with where it landed. I think I did just as much as I needed. There's not anything that I'm like, I wish I could have included, and I'm resentful that I didn't. It is funny though, because when I gave everyone options to read it before like final things, be like, this is your like, speak now, if you want anything out. But then Brendan was like, what if they say they want something out? And I'm like, it's like, sorry. Like, I don't know how seriously I would have held to that, but I didn't have to make the decision because they were okay with it.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah, you guys inspired.
Unfortunately, we only have time for one more.
Oh, no.
Are you just throwing your hat in the ring just because?
Andrew, you can ask me later, so you don't have to ask now. Oh, fine. Sorry.
I think I have a good ender. What are you most hopeful about right now?
What is Ari most hopeful about right now?
What am I most hopeful about right now?
Right now in 2025.
I know. I'm like Zoran. Like I can't let myself be too hopeful about Mamdani. It hurts too much to have that much hope. I am hopeful that a very personal one. I'm hopeful because Theo is in like great care right now. Like we found a really good child psychologist, and he's doing very well. So if you read the book, you'll know why that's like so I'm very hopeful about Theo. And I'm hopeful that like people are really angry, and I think that like everything sucks right now, but I kind of believe we're reaching a what's the word, like the breaking point. I like seeing how angry people are because I am very angry, and so that makes me feel hopeful.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's just
Yeah.
so fun. Thank you. Oh, real quick, I didn't make this up. I stole it from someone, but I'm leaving this copy for everyone to sign if you want to. You can sign anywhere you want in the book, hide something. I'm just bringing it on the tour, so I'm going to like leave it up there. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, a raffle.
We also thank you. First of all, thank you so much for both being here and conversing. That was lovely. Let's give another round of applause. I will have Arianna's book at the front at the register. That you can sign after you hit the signing line. If you're showing up to the live stream, you can buy a copy of the book in the link in the description. If you're here, you can buy it at the front where you checked in. You can also buy Emily's book. And there's other books to buy, but you should just buy those ones tonight, especially. What else I have in my hand? You all have raffle tickets. Libro FM, who does audiobooks in partnership with independent bookstores, is doing a very lovely giveaway of 3 credits, I believe. There's a credit system that you'll have to read about on their website. But it was a giveaway. And so right now we're going to pick the winner, and then my coworkers at the front, if you won, bring your ticket, and they'll get your information. We'll give it to Arianna, and she'll send you the code for the award. So we're going to do that real quick.
Okay. All right. Okay, so it's 481731. Mary! Yay! Mary, my first boss in New York, not BuzzFeed. Great. All right. So I know your information. It's easy. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So final things. My lovely coworkers are now pointing towards where Arianna will be signing, and you can really jump in, and they are signing and personalizing. It's going to be right over there. We're going to ask you to line up down the center aisle. Make sure to grab your belongings. We do pack up the chairs pretty much as soon as you're out of them. And just thank you so much for coming, and have a great night.
Thank you so much. I'm like sweating. Thank you. That was